8 gigabytes? Really, Nvidia? That's tiny. That's so small. Like, is it even in yet? Is the graphics card in the PCIe slot yet? Because I didn't feel it. 8 gigabytes of VRAM in 2025. Are you serious? Don't make me laugh. What woman would ever love you with that little amount of VRAM? You'll at least have to double it before she gives you a smile. Today we're talking about RTX 5060, 5060 Ti, also AMD's 9060 XT. We got the good, the bad, and the ugly today. All kinds of details. Also my estimates on the performance of these graphics cards. Boys, let's get right into it. Starting off with the 5060. This graphics card, unfortunately, is gonna have 8 gigabytes of VRAM. It is tiny, it is just diabolically small, but watch Nvidia come out with their neural compressor technology. Yeah, the kind that makes me naked, like I am right now. And actually make this 8 gigabytes equal to 12 gigabytes. I'm calling it right now. They're going to do something like that and say, don't worry about VRAM. No need to even think about, second think this thing having 8 gigs. So the 5060 is gonna have a 3840 CUDA cores. That is actually a bump of 25% over the 4060. So, hey, actually good job Nvidia. You're giving us a generational improvement in CUDA cores for like the first time this generation other than the 5090. Also, we're still on the 128-bit bus RIP. This is like a 50-50 card with 8 gigabytes of GDDR7. This gives us a bandwidth, actually is pretty decent for a 60 class card, of 448 gigabytes per second. This is a staggering 65% increase over the 4060, all while we're getting a 150 watt power draw. Although this is rumored to be within that 16 pin, the 12 volt high power connector that melts. But I doubt it'd melt on this 5060 card, even though, you're gonna need a more expensive power supply for this low end card. So kind of weird to see that there. But yeah, so that's all there is for the 5060. If I'd have to guess, I'm just gonna get my performance estimates for each of these cards after I go over the specs and jumping right into it. 5060. We're getting 25% more CUDA cores, but a staggering 65% more bandwidth. So I expect this card to scale above the amount of CUDA cores to around 30% performance gain. It's not much, but it's something. And this actually puts us around a 3070 in performance on a 60 class card, which, I guess is around a 2080 Ti when it's not pushed to the limit. That's okay. I also could see this card reaching for the limits if you overclock it, if you're getting really reaching deep into that memory bandwidth of getting 45% faster than the 4060, and that'd put you around an RX 6800, which that graphics card had 16 gigabytes of VRAM. I don't think with this performance level you're really going to be struggling with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So decent performance and a really low power with the 5060, although that VRAM is just going to be holding it back so much. So jumping right in to the 5060 Ti. Wow, this Ti class card is giving us an option, just like the 4060 Ti, of 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Wow, okay, 16 gigabytes of VRAM, but there's still an 8 gigabyte option, and if we know Nvidia, they're gonna charge a lot of money for that extra VRAM. I think the 4060 Ti charging another $100 or $150 just for that 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which depending on your use case can actually be worth that money. But yeah, this thing is gonna have 4608 CUDA cores, 4608 CUDA cores. That's an increase of only 6% over the 4060 Ti. Not too good, guys. It looks kind of actually lower than a lot of the increases we've been seeing with other graphics cards. I'm pretty sure the 5080 had at least an increase of like 9 or 10%. So this is even smaller than that, guys. But we're getting a staggering 55% increase in memory bandwidth. We're still on that 128-bit bus here. So, I think we're gonna see performance gains that exceed the CUDA core increase. Also, this thing's given a little bit more juice at 180 watts compared to the 150 we're getting on the 4060, all right? So I think, honestly, this thing probably only 15, maybe if you push it 25% faster than a 4060 Ti. But hey, if you can get 16 gigabytes of VRAM for this thing, under $450. Maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. It's around a RX 6800 at the low end, and at the very highest end, this could be around a 4070 performance level. So yeah, coming in with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, all the way up to a 4070 performance level is actually pretty garbage, especially if this thing launches at $450. DOA at that price, but like I said, the 16 gigabyte model, if that's around $450, I think you could make a case for this, 4070 level performance, actually enough VRAM, and a decent amount of memory bandwidth to feed the beast with all the new technologies that Blackwell bring, minus the 32-bit PhysX implementation. This could cook. It could cook a little bit. It all depends on their price strategy, which so far they're really dropping the ball. Maybe Jensen's gonna wanna actually win some tier in price performance with Blackwell, but let's be real, guys, they never really try to compete at the 60 class anyways. Everyone will buy it just because it says Nvidia on it. So that's really how that's gonna go. Lastly, we have AMD's shot at the crown of the budget card. Okay, we have the 9060 XT. Now this thing is also following in suit of AMD's previous generation and the 5060 Ti, where it's got an 8 gig and a 16 gig config. And I don't know if this is the right choice at this point. I think people would value this card a lot more if they just came out and said, we're ditching 8 gigabytes altogether, it's not enough, and we're gonna give this thing 16 gigs across the board. But this thing, like I said, 8 to 16 gigs, 128-bit bus, but this thing's on GDDR6, so a lot less memory bandwidth. We only got 320 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth there. So honestly, I doubt this thing would perform on the 5060 Ti's level. This memory config's a bit nerfed. I think it's gonna be closer to the 5060 with around 3070 performance level. I mean, the 9070 XT, it had a lot less memory bandwidth, but it's performing closer to a 4080, which actually has a decent amount more than it. So there's something going on with Infinity Cache there and their latest advancements in that technology. But as far as this goes, I think the 9060 XT around 3070 performance max. And if you can get the 16 gig version, this thing costs anywhere below $350 for the 16 gig version. I think it could be a pretty decent competitor in the budget scene there. So we got the 5060 Ti, 5060, and the 9060 XT. Which one are you most excited for? I know I'm probably thinking the 5060 Ti, depending on the pricing and the segmentation here, is looking like the best overall pick for these three cards. The 9060 XT, if they come out with this card in around $300, and it's got that latest implementation of FSR4 AI-based upscaling, I mean, that's pretty good. They just got to get it in more and more titles, and then it's kind of a W for them. So I never really guessed my price point for the 5060. Let's be real, it's Nvidia we're talking about here. They do not like to play ball with their wallets at all. And this thing's probably gonna be $300 minimum, maybe $350. And then the 5060 Ti, realistically, the 8 gigs at $400, 16 gigs at $500, or maybe $450. That would probably be where they're gonna segment the 5060 Ti. And like I said, 9060 XT, if they know what they're doing, 16 gigabytes at 300, 8 gigabytes at like 230, and I think that would really mix it up in the market. So what do you guys think? Which card are you looking forward to the most? Like I said, I think the 4060 Ti is looking like a winner here, and that's just my thoughts. Silicon Steak, signing out. He's on deck from GPUs to CPUs, he knows it all. No question too big, no detail too small. He's got the knowledge, he's got the skill. When he drops his take, the haters stand